Okay, scholars, it's Mr. Durnan here. It is Tuesday night, and I want to prep you up for tomorrow and really for the seven classes that we will enjoy before our midterm exam. Um, I think I've mentioned to you, I kind of planned out the first quarter with Shakespeare and Gawain and the Green Knight, and in the second quarter, I was going to figure it out as we went, and that's what I've been doing. And I think the short story section was interesting. We covered some good work, but there are two things that I want to do, well, three really, that I want to get done before exams. I want to spend some time working on short stories, and I know that you've done very little on them, but we will get back to that. That's about all we'll do with stories, though, I think. So we'll be doing much more work with poetry, uh, particularly the poetry of the British Romantics. This is a major movement in the history of the poetry of our language. So we'll start with that. You know, you already have a little bit, but we'll do a little more tonight and in the days to come. And as an added idea, we'll take on ballads, which is a form of poetry that the Romantics enjoyed and used quite a bit. So both those ideas are important. So what now? Just a quick intro to the Romantics, whom we will discuss at length. The big three here, Byron, Shelley, and Wordsworth, they knew each other. They hung out. Oh, I don't have Coleridge in here. Coleridge would be the other one. Whoa, this isn't working very well, is it? We'll get to Coleridge in a minute. There are a couple more outliers. This guy, John Keats, some think is the best poet ever to write in our language. He wasn't really friendly with these nutcases over here, but they did appreciate his work. He died really young. This is Keats here. And William Blake was a total madman. And you'll, I think, enjoy getting to know a little bit about him in the days to come. Okay, your work, though, what I want you to do tonight is read this poem called Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. And I bet a lot of you have heard of it and you'll recognize the imagery in it, but you won't know it. It's, I guess I could go right here, and I'm not in the right mode, but this would be a link to it, but you don't need a link. Go to Google and Google Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and you'll find a copy of it. It's too bad not to be reading it in some dusty old tome of romantic poetry. And if you happen to live near me or another English teacher, just hit them up for a copy of the Ancient Mariner in paper form. It's a crazy old classic poem, and I want you to read the whole thing tonight. So that's your homework for tonight. That's the majority of it. You can take on a little bit more if you wish, but I want you reading Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Where are we going next here? Okay, further introduction to the Romantics. This book, Lyrical Ballads, is one of the most fundamental texts of poetry in our language, and it was composed by Wordsworth. I'm using a new tool here, and I don't know how it's going. And Coleridge. There we go. Yeah, these two guys were they were buddies of a sort, and they had had enough of Shakespeare and Donne, and the guys that came in the 100 years after Donne. So think 1600, 1700, 1750. A lot of very formal poetry, and it grew increasingly formal. There were a lot of snippy little couplets, and it seemed the room seemed to have no fresh air in it, if you will. And these guys said, enough, let's change it. And this happened in, this book first came out in 1798, uh, and the and it contained a bunch of poems, including Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and including a bunch of other seminal works. One Wordsworth poem called uh, Tintern Abbey that we'll look at in class tomorrow. Well, let me get right to the chase of lyrical ballads, and I'll read you a little bit from the introduction to lyrical ballads. Here's my look. I grew up in the 70s. Uh, what Wordsworth says about halfway through his preface to this book of poetry, he says, I quote here, "The principal object then proposed in these poems was to choose incidents and situations from common life. From common life. This was his gig, and to relate or describe them thoroughly as far as possible in a selection of language really used by men." So you think of Shakespeare and Donne, two poets you know, they don't use language really used by men, right? It's quite deliberately artificial language. And Wordsworth's goal, and I think you could apply this to most of the Romantics, Wordsworth's goal was to use common experiences in common language. And we'll see that. You won't necessarily see it tonight, but we'll see it in the next week. Um, yeah, as I say, not exactly the stuff of the rhyme, the Ancient Mariner. Okay, what you're going to read tonight is a crazy kind of, not a ghost story, but almost. And it's not at all from the realm of common men. And in fact, Wordsworth didn't want Coleridge to put Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner in lyrical ballads, but they fought it out, and Coleridge won, and we're the happier because it's kind of a cool poem. But before I get to it, let me just read you a bit from a poem that is supposed to be of common life. This is from a Wordsworth poem called The Leech Gatherer. And imagine that you're hiking up in the Whites, way up in the mountains, over 3,000 feet, and you come across some old guy who's soaking his legs in a pool there. Well, have a listen. He told, so the narrator of the poem has asked this guy what he's doing. He told that to these waters he had come to gather leeches, being old and poor, employment hazardous and wearisome. So what's going on here is that this old guy, to make his living, puts his legs in these tarns and gathers the leeches come and start sucking his blood, and he peels them off and then goes down to town and sells them to doctors. So this is a far cry from batter my heart three-person God. Quite a different game indeed. And we'll be getting to this. So I hope you're gathering that these romantic poets they were about doing something quite different. Okay, Coleridge, yeah. So Coleridge totally trippier than Wordsworth. These guys were, I mean, it's fair to say, to use the adjective trippy with them, Coleridge actually dabbled quite a bit in laudanum and some other drugs that would be comparable to, cocaine type of stuff. That was prescribed by doctors. What you'll see here is an image from Rhyme of the Ancient, there's the Ancient Mariner there, right? He's kind of strapped himself to the mast. This is from a bunch of images from the poem done by Gustave Doré, and this poem really has captured the imaginations of hundreds of thousands of really good readers, including some dope smoking high school kids who end up creating art like this, right? You'll see there. This is an albatross. That's what you're getting there. I should probably erase it. You might want to enjoy this with your black light in your dorm room. Anyway, this Rhyme of the Ancient Mariners has inspired a lot of good and bad thinking, and I hope it captivates your imagination to some extent tonight. And again, that's your homework. Go online, find Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and read this story through start to finish, poetic story. Okay, so yeah, as I point out, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner is not a common tale, and you know that what Wordsworth was after was a common tale told in common language. But what the rhyme is a ballad. So it does fit in terms of lyrical ballads. It is a ballad. And I bet you've heard the word ballad. You heard, like, even in contemporary rock and roll, you hear like power ballad. It's a useful word that's been around for a really long time, as have ballads, right? Ballads are songs. Imagine songs sung by traveling minstrels. So they're kind of folk songs. They often told stories, and we'll be talking about ballads. Here's just a quick look at a very traditional ballad. This thing's been around forever. Nobody knows who originally wrote it. The Tway Corbies. So Tway is two, and Corbies are crows. So I'll read it, and then just the first. I think it's 7 stanzas. I'm just gonna read a couple of them. As I was walking all alane, I heard Tway Corbies making a man. They're ta'en into the other say, where shall we gang and dine the day? In a hint, so the other Corby responds to him in Corby language. In a hint yon old fail dyke, I wot there lies a new slain knight, and none to ken that he lies there, but his hawk, his hound, and his lady fair. So a little bit of almost reaching back there to Gawain-ish language here. What is balladic? What makes this a ballad? You'll hear these lines end a little sooner than iambic pentameter lines, right? As I was walking all the lane. So this is tetrameter, and tetrameter is very common in ballads. or sadly gang and dine the day. Oops, dine the day. So we're getting that kind of language. Also, there's spoken words, right? We hear these crows, one talking to the other. Where are we going to go eat? And the other crow responds, "Well, let's have a taste of this newly killed knight." So these are both properties of ballads that are fairly common. If you listen to this last line one more time, okay, these crows are hungry and looking for a bite of carrion, of corpse, and they know where this knight is. Well, they know where he is. Who else knows where the knight is? His hawk. Okay, that makes sense. You think of the host of Gawain at his castle, right? He would have had his hawk and his hound. But who else knows where the newly slain knight lays? His lady fair does. Uh-oh, right? So it's this sort of, it's called an ellipsis, right? An absence in the poem. You don't really know what's going on, but you know that this knight is dead, and nobody knows it except his lady. So this begins an intrigue. And this, too, is fairly common of the storytelling method of the ballad. So, so there's a brief overview of the romantics and of the ballad format, and let me finish with a challenge. There are ballads that have run from 1400 in Scotland and Wales and all over the British Islands, all the way through to today. If what I challenge you to do, find a cool ballad and suggest it to me by email, or write it down on a piece of paper and rubber band it to a rock and throw it through my window, or however you want to communicate with me. But if you can come up with a cool idea for a ballad, we'll begin class tomorrow by ideally listening to it. Probably we're talking about a song here, right? Do be ready for a quiz on Rhyme the Ancient Mariner. And that's that. Would you do me a favor? When you come to class tomorrow, bring a computer, and because we might work on your short story, bring Break, Blow, Burn, uh, and that's it. And as I say, read Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner and try to come up with